Hello, hello. Today we are joined in by Bernadette Smart. Bernadette is a soul that I came across not too long ago, probably actually 2 weeks ago, when I came across her content over a social media platform. And her words and her music and her messages touched my heart deeply. And since I'm dedicating my time right now to using and utilizing this platform to speak with everyday heroes who are making a difference, everyday heroes who are speaking their truth in a very loving, compassionate, and fierce way, Bernadette definitely fit that bill, and I was really excited to speak with her today. So thank you so much for being here, Bernadette.
Thank you for having me.
I was going to start off by reading your bio, and then we'll take it from there. So Bernadette's website, I will have all her info noted just at the bottom here under the description section. So if you want to check out her wonderful work and her offerings, we will share a little bit more about that, and you can do that with the information provided below. Her links will be there. On Bernadette Smart. Over the past 12 years, I have been committed to walking the path back home to myself and have explored and collected many practices and learnings which have helped me to connect with my body, my environment, and my awareness of nature as my true home. I bring together my learnings in nature resonance medicine, my research into human-nature connection for an MA, many years of teaching and practicing yoga and meditation, studies in herbal medicine, wild and vitalist nutrition, body work, iridology, and energy work to create courses, workshops, events, and mentorship, which is both empowering and grounding, and will introduce you to the wisdom of nature and the unwavering support and guidance she offers to all who humbly seek her communion. When I heard the call to return to nature, to the old ways, to the knowledge we have lost and so desperately need to regain, I became aware of how our senses of being and belonging in the world is vital to how we function as living creatures. This awakened awareness led me on a journey of learning and exploration. I found respite from the constant stress and anxiety of never feeling good enough, finding solace in the fullness and embodiment of a conscious breath, or the fleeting beauty of crystal raindrops hanging from winter branches, or of seeing a fox running wild and free in the early morning mist, the unrelenting struggle to bring myself into the quiet solitude of the present moment laid the fertile foundations for the creative, deeply submerged in nature existence, which has become the focus of so much of my energy today. Thank you so much, Bernadette. That was beautiful. I wanted to ask you, so our backgrounds are actually somewhat similar, as I also teach yoga and meditation. And I started off with studying Western psychology because I wanted to make sense of the psyche, of what motivated us, what moved us. And to be honest, it was great. Psychology was really fascinating, but I felt like it was a very small piece of the puzzle. And then my introduction to yoga was amazing and beautiful because mixing, or a combination of Eastern and Western psychology, along with really stepping into your body and getting guidance and using that inner compass to guide us through life was so important in my personal journey. And when I read your work and listen to your messages, I feel like you are so embodied in who you are that whatever that might be happening around us, you have such great clarity and focus.
I hope so. I mean, you can put it through the writing, but not necessarily always feel it in the moment, you know? I think that for me, I actually studied philosophy at university, so quite similar in a sense, and it does have that blending when you have a foundation in something like philosophy or psychology. that to then add that into Eastern philosophy and to bring those two things together can be quite powerful, you know? So I certainly try to be as embodied as I can, and I certainly find that the practices and the work that I do helps to keep me embodied, but that our world is designed to disembody us. Our society is designed to take us out of the moment, to tell us our emotions are wrong, to tell us to bypass, to tell us to push everything away. And that just coming back to your breath and coming back to your body and saying, what's happening right now in this moment? What choice can I make in this moment that's for my best good? You know, what choice can I make that is okay? Just that little thing, it seems to be enough for me. And I can't do it all the time. Obviously, sometimes I still, lose it regularly. But I think that having that foundation of those practices is really helpful in staying as grounded as possible. Oh, I can't hear you, Taya.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm trying to mute myself when you speak just so that we don't get the audio feedback.
Sure.
I wanted to pull up your entry here. You might hear heavy stomping upstairs. Those are the kids running around. Well, maybe
the same going on down here. It's okay.
Okay, so with regards to, I'm going to see if I can pull this up. I found this so moving. Okay, I'm pulling this up from your social media page here.
Oh, okay.
I came across this entry of yours on, you had written it on May 1st. I'm not here to hide and cower in the face of bullies and psychopaths who have no heart, no integrity, and no respect for life. I didn't walk through the flames of transformation to let simpering tyrants and their mindless minions push me around, hiding behind their web of oppressive systems disguised as civilized society. I didn't find myself lost and bloodied in the underworld and love myself back to life only to let petty dictators tell me how to live according to their insane obsession controls. I don't owe these people an explanation about why I don't want what they're selling. It is entirely possible to be kind, open-hearted, and compassionate while firmly setting boundaries and refusing to be coerced into doing things which are not for my good or the good of humanity. I am a free being. I came here to walk free upon this earth, which is my home, to live in harmony with the natural world whose water runs through my veins, whose air fills my lungs, and whose fire enlivens and inspires my spirit. I came here to remember who I am as a connected and resonant being of nature, to live from my heart and to love this earth fiercely and with every of me. I am a free being. I am a free being. I am a free being. I was in tears when I read that.
Wow, thank you.
Oh, thank you. What is motivating you to share? You mentioned briefly to me just recently that you got Spirit basically spoke with you and asked you to study. Maybe you can speak a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, I've always shared from a place of I'm going to say an intellectual place. I've always almost sanitized what I wanted to say because I didn't feel confident enough maybe to put that pure spirit voice almost out there. But I was in meditation maybe about a month ago, and I'd been speaking with some mentors and friends of mine who were talking about how they had been told by their guides about using technology and how you can't avoid it. And in fact, this is how we're spreading our messages right now. And so I sat in meditation and I was saying, why can't I share in this way? Why won't I take photographs of myself? Why don't I like doing that? And the message I got really strongly was, if you don't speak in the language that people understand, they cannot hear you. And I thought, okay, so what does that mean? And the message was really strong. It said, you write the stuff that you want to write it from your heart, but also you've got to put your face there. You have to share your face. And it was almost that realization and that power of saying, okay, I'm not going to be afraid to show my face with my words. That's almost what gave me that ability, that strength to be able to share in this way, and to not be afraid of what people say back, to know that I've shared my truth from that place with spirit at my side, that they've got my back, that, this is important. I have to put it out there. And the growth that's come back from that already feels really magical. It really feels like I'm in this flow, like I jumped into this flow, even though I was very uncomfortable doing it, even though I hate taking photographs of myself. I mean, I am that person. I'm the one in my family who is standing in the back of all the photographs with a stupid smile on my face, or with my eyes closed, or, I'm famous in my family for making stupid photograph faces. So it's a big challenge for me. But, I think it was the right decision. And actually, it's like, spirit's like, just do it. It's important. And this is how people communicate now. So you can't expect them to hear you unless you say it this way. So it's almost like something is transmitted through the image as well. It's an important thing, I think, for us now. But I had to get over my worry at being seen as narcissistic for showing photographs of myself. That's what I had to get over,
Yeah. Have you heard of Oracle Girl by chance, Dr. Jacqueline? Okay. So interesting that you mentioned that about even the face and image, because she speaks about how not only her message, but her voice, as well as her appearance, her face, her physical body, acts as a purification for those whom she comes in contact with. And it just made me think of that when you were saying that. And what's interesting too, Bernadette, me utilizing this platform and me coming on, my husband is very comfortable being in the public eye, and he's done that for a very long time. He's been teaching at his college for a very long time, and he's on the platform, he's in front of audiences. This was never something I had envisioned. In fact, when he would speak of me joining him, because typically we facilitate retreats and workshops together, but I'm very content holding space for our community in a very one-to-one intimate way, for smaller groups as well. But this wasn't my comfort zone, and it was something that came up after we just completed the 15-part series on his Inspire Health podcast platform. I felt such a big, strong emotion of the feeling was, I need to do more. And it was like I was in tears, because I felt like there was this big urge within me that felt like, okay, there's something else that needs to be done. There's some other mission that needs to be fulfilled. And then I just waited, and the inspiration came to speak with people like yourself and get your message out and create a platform so that you can amplify your voice with your beautiful messages. And so I've been following that. And for me too, I'm that same person that you are, hiding behind somebody else in photographs typically.
Hard, isn't it? It's hard, because it's I think that holding that space in a different way and saying, actually, I can push myself forwards a little bit here, and I can, and actually that connects to the music as well, because my partner is a musician, and obviously he's used to performing. And for me, it's something that I've now find incredible and enlivening. But to start with, it's terrifying, and you can't even get it out. Your voice doesn't want to do it, you kind of, and then you think, oh, what am I doing? But he's made me sing on the street with him a few times. And my goodness, is that an amazing experience. It's so liberating, you know, it's so liberating to do that. So I thank him for pushing me in that sense and getting the voice out there as well, you know.
Awesome. I'm going to share that in a moment too. I'll read this one, speaking of facing challenges, and this is a beautiful one too, and showing face.
Mm.
The noise out there is getting louder. It is deafening. The world is ripping itself apart, and we are witnessing this dissolution in real time. But there is a profound message amongst all that noise and contradiction if we can get quiet enough to hear it. When nothing is clear and everyone seems to be screaming and contradicting each other, you are being called to make a choice. The choice is between chaos and peace. To choose peace is to come back to yourself, to your intuition, your higher self, that part of you that is unwavering and universal, that part of you that instinctively knows what is real. As we get quieter and turn away from the noise, we can hear the whisperings of the wisdom of the body and of nature. As we strip away the trappings of deception and the layers of manipulation, conditioning, and control, we find ourselves alive, awakened, peaceful, and connected. Go to nature, lay your hands upon the earth, offer her your allegiance, do it over and over until you remember who you are. Do the same with your hand upon your heart, for you and nature are one and the same thing. That's such a beautiful reminder, an important reminder, Bernadette. Can you speak a little bit more about, you know, people who don't spend much time in nature? I've had a feedback that, well, what's the point? Like, what's the point of going and walking in the forest? Like, why do I need to stop and look at a leaf?
Well, I guess I'd say to that person, you don't need to if you don't want to, if it's not calling you. But it would indicate that that person is very disconnected from spirit, because they're also disconnected from themselves. You know, to me, the human body is the representation of the earth walking around. You know, we're the physical aspect of ourselves, our flesh. That is the earth. We're as if the earth could get up and move. So we have a duty to express ourselves as the earth, you know, to connect and to flow and to do the things that the earth can't do. That's our job almost, is to work around like that. But I think to somebody who doesn't understand the point, I think maybe they are so disconnected from their own humanity that they've forgotten who they are. They've completely forgotten that actually they're not a being of science. They're not a being of the machine. They're a being of nature. They're made of the same stuff. And I think it's quite sad, you know. But also I think that people only come to these things when they're ready, and that some people, it's just not their story this lifetime, maybe, you know. But maybe they connect in other ways, you know. Maybe they have other ways of connecting, or maybe they just aren't there, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like through all of what we've been going through this past, year and a half now almost, is coming to the realization that maybe we each do have our individual paths, like our soul contracts, that which we came in to fulfill within this lifetime. Maybe it wasn't what you and I would want everyone, but but maybe it's it's the narcissist who is needing to, who has come in even to assist the partner or the spouse to actually awaken to their own power and abilities and innate senses to be able to navigate life effectively. So I feel like, there's a place for all of us within this grand scheme of divine existence that as human beings, oftentimes at this moment where I want everyone, I want on a very simple level, for the sake of humanity, as I can see it at this time, to take off their mask, to reclaim their power and their voice, to say no to, you know, these corrupt few who are trying to push out this very dark agenda. But, you know, it's oftentimes, who in a flash talks about, there's a gentleman, a Lemurian light being that we've spoken to as well, and he said, you know, it's oftentimes it's the dark that allows the light to shine that much brighter. So it's that's a journey that we all came in for. I wanted you, if you could, to speak a little bit more about the importance of movement from your perspective.
Sure. I think movement is really important because it shifts the energy, you know, so it helps to move stagnation. It actually helps to process and remove trauma from the body, as we were talking earlier about trauma. It just allows you to become more embodied as well. So you've got all these different layers to free movement. You can do yoga. It doesn't matter how somebody moves, you know, they can just lie on the floor and move their hand if that's what they need to do. But it's about that starting to shift the energy, starting to bring the consciousness out of the head and down into the body, and getting into the movement, and starting to understand that actually you are embodied, because most of us walk around not even embodied most of our lives. We don't even feel it. And it's something that it took me quite a few years of yoga practice to realize that a lot of yogis, in fact, very advanced yogis, are actually hanging out in their head. They're not in their body. And that becomes this huge bypassing, this huge spiritual bypassing, where they're actually just pretending everything is okay. They're kind of grinning and bearing it through the poses. They're not getting into the meat of it, which for me is to dive into the feeling in your body and explore that. And that's where you find the release, and that's where you find the embodiment, and that's where you find that beautiful practice that is a spiritual practice of embodiment, rather than this kind of living up here somewhere, not really paying attention to what's going on in your body, but you're stretching and you feel like you're strong, and you're not really listening, you know? So I used to tell my students, I'd say, don't run away from the feeling, try and get into it, you know, that's try and find your way in. And that's where the good stuff is, you know, if you can actually kind of get your consciousness to dive right in there, into that knee or into that thigh or wherever, that's where the beauty is. And that's, to me, what movement is and what embodiment is. It's about actually bringing in the consciousness into the body and feeling how you can move it around.
What's really interesting, you mentioned around trauma. Yes, so we just spoke about that briefly before we started recording. And just for the audience, we're on the Inspire Health podcast, we're pulling together a series on trauma recovery right now. And that's come up a lot with regards to exactly what you're speaking of, is actually stepping into the feeling. And oftentimes, you've probably experienced this as well, is when you mention that, people oftentimes feel, then the students, the participants feel like, okay, when we do step into the feeling, there's going to be this feeling of bliss, of, you know, wonderful, of, you know, adventures and joy. It's all going to be rainbows and butterflies. And for me personally, and I've witnessed this within the class setting as well, within the workshop setting as well, is that there's tears, there's anguish, there's anger, there's irritability, there's the inability to actually stay with what is coming up, because it can be really overwhelming. And so what are some strategies that you incorporate to be able to stay with that, to be able to process that? Because we also know that feelings and trauma is held specifically within the physical body, within the body. And so as we are moving the body, as we're stretching it, as we are challenging ourselves in different ways within the body, those emotions will come up. How do you typically guide or work with, even within your own body? How do you stay with those?
Well, I would try to. I think Yin Yoga is probably quite a good example for this, because Yin Yoga, I think, it brings up those feelings more than anything else, and you have to stay in that pose for 5-10 minutes, you know, and it's a mind over matter thing, really, I guess. So you have to find that balance between, how can I not come out of my body? How can I not? Because that's our natural state is to dissociate. In that, you know, if you're uncomfortable, you dissociate, but that's not going to help you. That's not going to get you through this traumatic feeling. So I guess it's about exploring not just the physical sensation, but the emotions that are coming up, and trying as much as you can to be a witness to those feelings while feeling them. If you know what I'm saying, it's one of those kind of paradoxical things, you know, where if you can witness and experience at the same time, so almost like you're holding yourself, almost like you're holding the space for yourself, and maybe asking spirit to help also to hold that space for you so that you can process, and not asking too much of yourself either. So understanding that sometimes it is okay to go, actually, I've had enough right now, and I'm going to stop, and I'm going to honor that, and I'm going to go and sleep, or I'm going to have some tea, or I'm going to go outside, or even just to understand that even a little bit of dealing with your trauma, even letting it come up, is going to be the start, and it's going to keep coming. And to just hold yourself, I suppose, you know, being able to witness and hold yourself in that, and be that comfort, I guess, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. It is hard. And the longer I practice yoga, the more I find comes up, you know. It's almost like there's more and more and more and more. But now I'm more able to actually deal with it. You know, I let it come out. I now understand myself as an emotional creature. I don't, you know, most women grow up thinking that because we're emotional, we're crazy. That's what we've been told. We've been told,
Yeah.
you know, that our emotions, we should be certified because we're crazy, you know. But actually, we're just women. We're just emotional, and that's the way it is. And if we hold it in, we're going to be 1,000 times worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, it's important for us to understand that emotional nature of our lives.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've actually found, Bernadette, great comfort in kind of free style dance movements to music. And you know, when I first started to dance, I actually went to a retreat center in the States called Kripalu, and part of their day structure is at lunchtime hours they offer just music, and you just go in and dance in however which way you want to. And I have to tell you, when I went there for a week period, the first 3 days it was so uncomfortable, and I learned through my own practice and through my own journey, is like that which is bringing up great discomfort for me needs to be explored a little bit more, because there's something to be investigated, and there's likely a gem that's to be uncovered. So I kept at it, and sure enough, like I would it's almost as if my insides had become so crusty and so rigid and so stiff, and that translated very, very clearly to the way in which I moved my body. And midway towards the end of the week, it almost felt like it was my soul that was hearing the music and expressing itself through my physical body. Like that was the liberated, free expression that I was able to tap into while this rigid cast finally started to shed from my body. And I don't know about you, but I see this in people as well, just because I'm really curious about myself and the world in which we live in, and all of us, and how we carry ourselves and how we process life. But I've noticed that people who actually have trouble expressing emotions, I can see it within family members as well, are very rigid, hold themselves very tight and small, and their movements are almost very robotic. There's not a whole lot of like, you know, freestyle movements that they incorporate. It's very controlled. So it's really fascinating in how the body expresses itself through the emotions and unprocessed trauma challenges.
Absolutely. And you see people, you know, getting more and more and more and more and more kind of, and I wonder also about age and whether in fact a lot of the symptoms of aging are just this kind of layering of trauma and this not expressing oneself for so long. And what would a human be like if they lived for 80 years and always expressed their emotions and moved their body every day and, you know, just did all these practices of connection just naturally? What would humans be like then? You know, would we be these amazingly vibrant, multidimensional beings just walking around in human form? Probably we would, you know, if we didn't have all the toxins of our environment. And I love to think about what humans would be like under those circumstances, you know. I think we'd be amazing.
I love that. I love your thoughts about aging and how different it could be if we express ourselves. Yeah, that's a great point. You speak of nutrition as a form of nature connection, and you have oftentimes these beautiful pictures of yummy looking baked goods that you post as well. Can you speak a little bit more about this and the importance and why it's important for us to even reconsider what we're putting into our mouths and into our bodies?
Sure. I think that once we come into the realization that many of the things in our environments are toxic, so, you know, the water that comes from our taps is toxic, and factory farmed meat is toxic, and, you know, so many toxins are in our environment. And once we come into that understanding, we kind of come back to a personal sense of responsibility for what we eat. And that sense of sovereignty that kind of runs through everything. It's the same when it comes to nutrition, and it's the same when it comes to nature connection. So once we take responsibility for what we put into our bodies, we also take responsibility for what impact we have on the environment. We take responsibility for what impact we have on nature, on our children. We take responsibility for everything. And that sense of responsibility and sovereignty is what nature connection is all about. But I think also what true nourishment and nutrition and interaction with the world is about. So it's a really big deal. It's all about taking back your power and saying, I'm not going to endorse that poisoning of my body, you know? And it's not to say that, you know, you never have a glass of wine or you never do, you know, never eat chocolate, but it's just to say that it's on you, you know? That's why it's an act of nature connection, because you understand it's you, it's your body, it's your responsibility, and ultimately you're the, oh, sorry, I have a companion who's just walked in.
That's okay.
Oh, he's gone again. The dog. He just came in and then left again. He's obviously coming. I was talking about food. That's probably what it is. But yeah, I think it's that. Oh, it's that sense of personal responsibility which comes from doing things like nature connection and understanding the connections between our food and our systems and the toxins in our water supply, and how that then connects to the bigger picture of what's going on in the world. And, you know, it's all connected to the idea of sovereignty and responsibility.
Perfect. Nice. I love that. This is a good segue into this that I wanted to share of yours as well. Speaking of connection and disconnection. To enter into a place of gratitude is to become part of the whole, to submerge ourselves in the moment and to remember that we too are nature. We too are part of everything and nothing. We live here in this beautiful, brutal reality, and we must live as through every seed, every leaf, every blackbird, every river, and every raindrop is a vital part of our being. There will be no solutions found in disconnection. There's been a lot of talk I've noticed in the spiritual community this past year speaking of exercises and meditations to clear or sever ties, to basically disconnect from that which has not served us. And I know in a conversation with Huna Flash, he said that there is no separation. You can't sever ties without actually giving up a piece of yourself. And it's almost as if right now, especially within this great awakening that's taking place, within the shift that's happening place, we actually want as many pieces as we can gather so that we can have a much wholer or fuller or holier understanding of who and what we are. It's almost as if each and every one of us is actually contributing to the knowingness of our own collective totality and what that could even mean. So I really love how you describe that as well, and as far as connection versus disconnection.
I think that this past year and a half has been an act of profound disconnection for many people. I think that it's sad to me that so many people can't see the inherent disconnection in this, you know, in covering your face, and the ritualistic aspects of what's going on, and the complete disconnection from that's going on all around us. You know, when you see people, it's almost like it's a cult. You know, it seems like a death cult to me. You know, that rubbing your hands with poison, preventing yourself from breathing, acting like you're sick. You know, taking an injection that is not necessary. At the very best, it's unnecessary. You know, at the very best case scenario, it's unnecessary. And to me, all of this stuff is just, it just demonstrates how profoundly disconnected most people are from nature, from humanity, from reason. It's so sad. It's so sad that actually people are so afraid of dying that they don't live.
Right.
You know, why hide in your house for the rest of your life? I would rather walk out in the street and get hit by a bus, because at least I was out, you know, at least I went and did something. At least I left. It's so sad. It's so sad to see humans so pathetic, actually. I hate to use that term because I feel very sorry for people who are in that state, but it's like they've embodied this pathetic state of deference to the cult of scientism and the cult of medicine, and it's just so sad. It's so sad to see people so disconnected from their basic understanding of life, you know.
You know, Bernadette, we just spoke with Kathy O'Brien. She's one of the survivors. I don't know if you know her. She's one of the survivors of the Illuminati, the child sex trafficking ring, and she was basically born into it. So as an infant, she was sexually assaulted, and so I mean, just a phenomenal woman, because she's totally come out at the other side of it. And she's worked through her life and her lessons, and now the messages that she shares are so amazingly uplifting for all of us, because to know what she's endured, and to know that she's not only is able to function on a day-to-day basis, but she's able to actually speak of it from a place that is much more empowered and enlightened as a result of what she endured, is truly remarkable. But she spoke about this very clearly and in detail. And as soon as this came up, she knew that it was part of the era that was being unleashed on the population. Her daughter was actually born into this as well. So her daughter, from the time that she was young, was actually made to wear this during during the time that she would be taken in and abused as well. So what it's so interesting, because these are the strategies and these specific tools that they used in order to make people feel subservient within that realm, within that underground happening. And so people who are coming out of that are able to see this quickly. And even those of us, like for me personally, I had endured some trauma from a young age. And I don't know if that necessarily has something to do with it, if it has to do with previous lives, different things that we were all, as a collective, possibly had to endure. But when this came up for me as well, the mask thing, it didn't feel right at all. It was like there's so many things that feel so fundamentally wrong about this, and I wasn't even able to intellectually place it. I just knew that it was completely off, completely deceitful, and completely wrong, and I did not want to partake in any of it.
Absolutely. It's just a gut feeling, isn't it? It's like, no, this doesn't happen. We don't do this. This is not something that we should be doing. And I think to almost answer your question, I think it's a bit of both. I think that some people are born with this knowledge from past lives, from their soul, of their inherent sovereignty. I do think some people are born with that knowledge, and I think that trauma also is a way of opening you up to it. So, I mean, I have been in an abusive relationship, so for me to see those same tactics being used, for me it was obvious almost what was going on. I could see it. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, this isn't going to get me again. I can see the gaslighting, I can see the carrots, I can see all this stuff. So for me, it's a guttural response of, no, you don't get me again. This is not going to happen again. But it's such a profound thing, isn't it? What's happened? It's so profound, and it's so deep, and humanity is deeply, deeply traumatized. Deeply traumatized, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning of this, there was the deep knowing when this started to unravel and be labeled as a pandemic, and all these mandates started to be handed out. There was a deep feeling that, nope, this is wrong. This is not exactly what they're saying it is. And then what quickly arose after that was an intense feeling of anger, and it was like rage, to the point of rage. And similar to what you're describing in that first entry of yours that I read, that you had posted on May 1st, it was like I was feeling so much anger, because it was almost like me turning to God or gods or the divine or the universe, like however which way. I'm actually kind of still processing that and reevaluating what that even means. But to the higher power, I was turning and saying, I've endured so much, and I feel like I just came into the clear where I could lead a civilized, calm, relaxing, connected life with my partner, with my children, and now you got to throw this shit at me. Yeah. Like, it was a feeling of intense anger and rage towards that divine, that ultimate power. And once that kind of subsided, because that's the thing with emotions, there's no good or bad. And I feel like even within the religious community or the spiritual community, or I know I've seen it very clearly in the yoga community and the meditation communities and the Buddhist communities, it's almost as if certain emotions are deemed as bad and good, and certain longings are negated or also seen as detrimental. And I have to say that I don't agree with any of that. I feel like as spirits, as a soul, as fractals of light within this physical body, the human body, we're going to experience all sorts of emotions. And how I've seen it, how I've experienced it and know it to be true within my own experience, is that we can actually allow the emotions that come up to, well, first they come up because we're processing life in general, but also they could be guiding lights. So if, for example, jealousy comes up, if envy comes up, if those emotions come up, then rather than saying, oh, that's a bad emotion, I need to stop, if I, on the other hand, view them as teachers, as an inner compass, as a guide, then I can say, so what is that pointing to within me? Like, what am I level longing for within my own life, within my own experiences, within my own relationships? So then I take the feedback that I've received from the emotion that I'm currently experiencing and use it to figure out how to redirect possibly my own life at this time. And even anger, oftentimes anger comes up because it's pushing away that which is obstructing or pressing into my need for freedom, my need for expression, my need for safety. And that's valid. I know it's played a huge part in my life as a kid when I needed it, and I actually kind of smothered it because I wasn't in a very safe environment and I didn't know how to handle that. But anger also plays a very important role in our development. My question then to you, how has emotions been, because you mentioned you're an emotional being, and I see that as wonderful. And I feel like we actually need a lot more emotional beings, otherwise we become very robotic and complacent. And can you speak a little bit more about emotions in your life and how they've played a part?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess when I first trained as a yoga teacher, it's quite an important point of my life, obviously, because it's a big deal, and it's this important thing. But I could never quite get comfortable with this idea that the goal was somehow to be this emotionless, placid, spiritually enlightened thing, because that's not who I am. And I wrestled with it for a long time, and I thought, does this mean that I'm not spiritual? Does this mean that I'm not a spiritual person? I can't be a yoga teacher. How am I guiding these people? I'm always emotional. And then I realized that that's not the goal. The goal is that you are a witness to your emotions. That you witness them, that you experience them fully, that you use them as guidance, as you say, on your path. And you say, right, why am I feeling anger right now? Anyone who's not angry at the state of the world right now, they are very unhealthy people. How could you not be angry at what's going on? I mean, I'm full of rage about what's happening in the world, and that rage needs to be expressed, because if I force it down into my body, I'm going to get sick, and it's like I used to suffer from eczema as a child, and I'm sure a lot of it comes from that suppression, that hold it inside, don't show that you're weak, because as women, we really are told that our emotions make us weak and unpredictable and hysterical and all of these things. But I found great power and great comfort in the discovery that actually that's not true. Our emotions are as important as the food that we eat. We have to expel them. Otherwise we're going to get very, very sick. And I think, to me, it feels like we're moving into this new paradigm now where we're starting to understand that, and the kind of feminine energies coming in a little more and saying, actually, no, you're not going to pathologize our emotions anymore. You're not going to use our emotions as a way to funnel us into a pharmaceutical system that will medicate us for life. We're not going to let you do that anymore, because actually we're okay with being angry and we're okay with being sad. And if you can't handle it, that's kind of your problem. It's this idea of funneling people into the system, and female emotion is a really, really, really strong way they get us in there. And once you're in, most of the time you can't come off of that medication. So it's I think that I hope we're moving into that new place where we can say, no, we're going to do this our way. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm thinking of, you know, the incoming new souls, the kids who are coming in and having trouble with this outdated and futile school system. And so rather than reevaluating that or taking a look at that in a very honest and truthful way, the parents who are very much within that old system, you know, of 9 to 5, of ends meet, just continuing on this treadmill because certain bills need to be paid, and so you can't really step back and take a look at things in an honest way, then are left to take their children to the doctor and have them on medication so that, again, continue that same sort of old, outdated pattern that no longer works for our evolution as humanity. And I myself was on medication for 6 weeks. I was on Paxil, which is an antidepressant. After spending, you know, I was bedridden for over a month, and my mom finally said, okay, let's go and figure out what's going on. She took me to, incidentally, a psychologist first, and he listened to everything I had to say, and he gave me a handout on how to meditate, which in hindsight I think is so hilarious. And then he referred me then to a psychotherapist and then a psychiatrist who gave me medication. And you know what was interesting? You know, through expressing, you know, my experience with living in a war, being abused by an uncle for a long period of time, like over a span of a few years, and then feeling like there was a few other men and boys in my life who also invaded my privacy from the time that I was quite young. None of that was even addressed. Like, you know, it was like, here's your medication, good luck. And I feel like speaking with Kathy O'Brien, talk therapy doesn't work. It oftentimes re-traumatizes the individual. It doesn't land anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. And we've seen this. And as far as people can spend years in a lifetime going and talking to a counselor and nothing comes of it. However, validation is so important, like feeling validated for how you feel, the experience that you had, being heard is really, really fundamental in starting the healing process. And outside from that, getting into the body and being with your emotions is also fundamental to healing. And so that's where, you know, Western psychology in a lot of ways failed. And this is where yoga and meditation was really helpful. However, being with emotions can be really intense, like even sitting meditation or what I found anyway, or Yin Yoga initially was really intense because there's a lot of emotions that were coming up, and within, you know, the quiet of the moment, those can come and hit you like a huge massive block, and it might be overwhelming. I know for me personally, yoga, the movement itself was really good because there would be, you know, a movement and then hold the posture for a few breaths, movement, hold the posture for a few breaths. And that was really useful and beneficial. And even walking meditation was good too. So as you're describing, being out in nature and walking and really being aware of how your feet, which part of the feet land on the ground first, a second, third, fourth. So really slowing it down to the point of where you're really aware of movement and how your feet are touching the ground. And how I think of it now is like kissing the earth. That's been really beneficial as well. When you mention as far as breathing, you know, and even watching how the breath moves within the body, those are all like really simple fundamental yet profound and transformational practices.
That's what I love about these practices and about nature connection in general, is that it's incredibly simple. It's really just breathing and, you know, drawing attention to your senses and exploring the world in a different way, from a different perspective, and getting really quiet and listening. And it's incredibly simple. In fact, it's knowledge that we all have inside. It's like it's our natural state of being. So that's why it's so simple. I think we've kind of reached the peak of the need for humans to overcomplicate things. And I like to think of nature connection as that opposite to that. You know, it's like, no, it is just breathing. No, it is just sitting. No, it is just walking. That's what it is. It's just looking and paying attention and seeing the beauty in something and bringing that into your everyday life and seeing the magic that's all around you, and then understanding that that's you as well. You are part of this divine creation. You are exactly the same as everything. You know, you are made of the elements. You're the breath. You exchange with the world all the time. And that simplicity it makes it hard for people to grasp, because they want this huge intellectual idea about what this is. And it's like, no, it is just being in your body. That's all it is. And understanding that you are nature. And that's the fundamental of it. And that you're free. Because nature connection is, once you understand that you are a part of nature, that it's not an anthropocentric worldview, you know, it's that you are part of the circle and you are equal to everything within that circle. You don't stand above it, you stand next to it. And once you understand that, you also understand that you are completely irrelevant, but that also you're just as important. You're part of this interconnected web. So that understanding of paradox again, that you're nothing, that you're everything, that you're irrelevant, that you're important, that you're magical, and you're completely tangible, and you're the earth as well, you know, all of those paradoxical ideas. But it's so simple. It's just so simple. And I suppose that's why I find it quite frustrating sometimes when people go, oh, I'm not interested in all that stuff, because actually, how can you not be? It's right there. It's, you know, it's so simple. Just breathe for a minute and see if you feel differently.
I love that, which brings me to this one, as far as listening closely. We are all free beings. We are all connected beings. We are all wise beings. We have intuition and inner knowing and deep, primal, soulful connection to the source of all life. Can you even hear? Are you listening at all? Has the world of noise deafened you to your inner voice? That sensation of something in the pit of your stomach, the fluttering in your belly, the whispers of a voice from your heart space, that is your intuition. That murmur coming from deep within, so resonant that it is almost as if it came through the very ground beneath your feet, is asking you to remember. It is guiding your way back to yourself. That burning in your gut, the deep inner knowing, the crackle of the inner fire, is the whispering of the spark that ignites all life, and it is lighting your way forward out of the darkness of deception. It is time now to shut up, to switch off, to walk out into the wilderness and stay silent for long enough that you can hear the profound and timely wisdom of your body once again. Your body is a conduit for natural wisdom. It is time now to follow its divine direction. Your words are so beautiful, like so beautiful. I get so much enjoyment, pleasure, and inspiration just from glancing at your page. So thank you for all that you're sharing. It's landing, it's important. Can you tell me what the feedback has been since you started to share more of yourself?
Yeah, it's been actually largely positive. Actually very positive. I've just had lots of people sending me messages and saying that my words have touched them, and that a lot of people saying, I need your voice in this world, which is a beautiful thing to hear. And it's been really validating for me, because I've written a lot over the last few years, but I just haven't put it out there. And my partner has been on my back to write a book for a very long time, but I make a lot of excuses because I have children. But I feel like this is me kind of starting to push myself, starting to get ready to maybe do that, but it's been it's been wonderful. It's been lovely to hear that people are receiving what I'm saying, and they're receiving it well. And I think it's time. I think it's really time that people understand that being disconnected is all part of the agenda. Mm-hmm. If we are all connected, there's nothing that they can do, because everyone rises above it. Everyone says, no, we don't need this. We don't want this. We're free. We know who we are. And I guess that's the message that I want to send to people, is that you're okay in this moment. And if you can remember that you're a human, not a robot, that's the basic, I guess, then it can everything can change pretty quickly if more people can realize.
And Bernadette, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I also feel like these different agendas that are being put out to create divide right now, I see it so clearly as being unimportant and a distraction. And I mean, my skin color was quite a few shades darker than it currently is when I was a child. And so coming from the Middle East and being categorized as a terrorist for a very long time, and being called all sorts of names because people didn't know exactly how to place my background when they would see me and my color and my features. But so I understand that. I understand what prejudices and discrimination is, to a certain degree. But I also feel like where we are right now and how we're evolving, and where as a humanity, what our evolution is like and the shifts that are happening, I really feel like this white noise that is coming up, and the BLM and all of these other sort of narratives that are being put out there, it's like, this is false. This is not real. This is a distraction. Like, I just know that so clearly. And I see so many, fellow yogis in my community falling for it hard. They've got their hand and feet and fist up in the air. And I'm like, but that's not real. Like, that's just a distraction right now. Can you not see the bigger picture of the bigger agendas that are playing out? Like, this is the time to actually unite and come together in our humanity, in our compassion, in our love, in our solidarity, in our sovereignty, in our freedom, in our humanness, in our commonality. And I feel like everything else that's coming up is just, it's like fluff. It has no substance.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I think choosing not to be plugged into the news media and all of that stuff is a huge step in understanding, stepping back enough to be able to see what might really be going on. We don't even have a television, so we're never really exposed to that.
Yeah, we don't either.
And I think it's really, I guess if you were sitting at home and watching this stuff all the time, that you would become. Is somebody coming in? Sorry, 1 second.
That's okay, no problem.
Is it the little one? Is she really, really tired? Come here, I can, come here, baby. Yeah. Come here, darlings. All right. Are you tired, sweetheart? Come on. Come on. All right. Come on. Come on. Here we go.
Oh, hi, little one.
Come on. You're tired. The dog's in the... Sorry.
No problem. Don't be sorry. This is kind of real life. Aw.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hey. So I was just saying how we don't have a TV. Is that bad? Yeah.
Well, it definitely makes it challenging because we don't either. And I have to tell you, the families that do, to place a kid in front of this hypnotic sort of technology that kind of takes them away into different dimensions away from here, it's an option. It's a viable option for a lot of parents who are really busy or who want just,
Absolutely.
you know, some help with childcare. But yeah, this is real. Like this is how life is.
Exactly. Go on, off you go, you guys.
I know you're busy. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. You've been very generous with it so far. I did want to play your track here. Can you maybe give us the context or speak a little bit more about it?
Sure. So actually, it was written by my partner Nigel. He wrote it. He actually wrote it for himself to sing, and it just didn't sound right. And I said, "Can I sing this song?" And he said, "Yeah, you can sing it if you like." And he left me upstairs recording it for an hour or so. And when he listened to my voice, he was like, "Who is this? This doesn't sound like you. I don't know what's happening here." But he wrote it as obviously about these times. He wrote it to say, you know, this, darling, would you mind? Go on. He wrote, oh, you guys. He wrote. Sorry.
No problem. Be sorry. It's okay.
Guys, give me a few more minutes. Come on. I'll be in with you in a minute, darling, okay? Come sit with me then. Come on, come sit with me. Yeah. So yeah, he wrote it with this idea of the underdog and, you know, the image of David and Goliath, and I love it. It's a beautiful song. It's a beautiful song. This is Tion.
Hi. Okay, I'm gonna play it here for us.
Come here.
I am David. I'll stand my ground to the last breath. They won't bring me down. I will draw the strength I found in you.
That's Mommy.
In the hour of the giants fall, I will stand up, and they will fall, and together we'll tear down the wall that divide us all. It's the hour of the underdog. You are David. They will call your name through the silence of the darkest days. You will hear them and know your aim is true. And the voices, like a lion's roar, echo louder than before, and together you'll bring down a wall that define us all. As the hour of the underdog. It's the hour of the underdog. It's the hour of the underdog.
I'm actually on this side. Yeah, Mommy.
Mummy.
We are David. Stand our ground till the last breath. They won't break us down, you won't hear us. There'll be no sound at all.
Mommy's singing.
And silent, like a lion's roar, get louder, louder than before, and together we'll tear down the wall that confines the soul. It's the hour of the underdog. 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 It's the hour of the underdog.
Thank you, Nigel, for the words. Thank you for your voice.
Mommy.
That
This
is
is
mommy.
Mommy singing, yeah.
Together we'll tear down the walls that confined us all. It's the hour of the underdog. And what my husband was just mentioning before we started recording, he just spoke with Dr. Todd Dr. Todd. He was mentioning about the coronavirus and how they have done they had done something at their end to be able to figure out what the message is of this virus. And he'll speak a little bit more about it in his episode with Dr. Todd that's going to be airing probably next month. But essentially, the virus itself, there's no identifiable single enemy at this point. And there's also no crowning, meaning that the heroes that are going to lift us out of this
Guys.
Oh, the heroes are them.
Hey, you guys. 1 minute.
Yeah, so the heroes, Dr. Todd was essentially saying that who's going to lift us out of this scenario are us. Like there's no savior that's going to come in.
Poor thing.
There's no like hero or one individual who's going to come in and save us all from the predicament that we're currently in. That it's essentially the hour of the underdog. It's essentially you and me and those people who are voicing their truths and coming out and say, "Come on, let's come together and let's figure this out collectively."
Absolutely. I think I love the lyrics to that song. It's very beautiful poetry that he's written, and it's so true. It's not about looking for a savior. I think that time is, of human history is long past. We need to understand that it's our sovereignty that gets us out of this. That's what gets us out of all of this. And Nigel actually he recorded a protest EP, so he's got 4 songs on it, I think, which he released last year sometime, I think. So he did do some protest music, but he was a little bit, at the time, everything was a bit crazy and he was a little bit worried about putting it out there. But it's very good. I'll send you the link to it, actually.
That would be great. I was going to ask if you can actually send me that, and I'll include that in the comments below here. And people can access it as well. That would be great. And also, Bernadette, where can people find you if people want to get in touch with you, see what you're up to, follow your work? And I know you hold events as well. So where can people find you?
Well, my website is a good place, although it is still under construction. So bernadettesmart.com, or just connect with me on Facebook or on Instagram, and I will. I'm happy to answer messages on either of those platforms as well.
Wonderful. So we'll have those links at the bottom here as well. Thank you so much for your time, Bernadette. I really appreciate you and all the messages that you're sharing at this time and all the inspiration that you're providing for everyone. Thank you for your voice, and thank you for your courage, and thank you for your emotions. Thank you for
Thank you. And apologies for my crazy dog and children.
Not a problem at all. We love it. It's real life. Thank you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It was lovely talking to you.